Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Keneal Gale. Following criticisms and debate about the fees imposed on customers by banks, a few have opted to suspend their dormant account fees, saying they're now revising those fees. However, opposition MP for South St. Catherine Fitz-Jackson says he's still not satisfied. He says he has also found grounds to file a class action lawsuit against those banks. He was a guest on BATV's business discussion show On Point last evening. Anthony Morgan reports.
Scotiabank, National Commercial Bank (NCB), First Caribbean and First Global have all stopped charging customers fees for maintaining dormant accounts. The banks say they are revising the fees. However, opposition Member of Parliament Fitz-Jackson says while he welcomes the decision, he is only partially satisfied.
I heard the release that the banks have issued commensurate with their cessation is that suspension. It's a complete difference from termination. I would be more satisfied if I heard them say they are terminated.
But certainly, Fitz, that's just a play of words. Because, I mean, the fact of the matter is that before you can make any permanent decision, you have to take a decision temporarily to look at things.
When they started, it wasn't temporary. They started it permanently. They didn't say we are trying something when we are imposing the dormancy fee. They just unilaterally imposed it.
He says the fact that there is a fee placed on dormant accounts initially is a breach of a provision in the existing Banking Services Act of 2014.
Section 36 says, on the general provisions with governance, every director, officer, and key employee of a licensee shall, in the discharge of his functions, A, act honestly and in good faith in the best interest of the licensee and for the protection of the depositor's fund. Explicitly places a duty of care, responsibility on key officers, directors of the licensed here, meaning the licensed financial institutions.
The opposition MP says it is for this reason he is filing a class action suit against those banks which were charging the fees.
It, in my judgment and in legal opinion that I have solicited, is a clear, explicit violation of the existing act. And therefore, the suit would be to cause a cessation and to cause a refund. You can't break the law, injure other persons, and you just walk away. Persons have suffered enormously.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
Meanwhile, there are speculations this evening that opposition MP Fitz-Jackson is set to take up the mantle as opposition spokesperson on finance in the new shadow cabinet, set to be announced by the new opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips. However, the MP said that discussion has not yet been had. Here's more.
Have you been asked to be opposition spokesman on finance? Is that yes or no answer? You know,
I haven't had that discussion.
I never asked if you have had the discussion. I asked if you have been asked. A discussion.
Well, let me be blunt and frank.
Yes.
And I have oftentimes become a victim of my bluntness.
Yes.
At this stage, if I had the discussion, I wouldn't tell you.
Mr. Jackson, although having the experience as a former junior minister of finance, says he will continue to speak in Parliament as a member of the lower house.
I will be speaking as a representative of the people of South St. Catherine.
But even as opposition,
that represents all of Jamaica.
But those positions are not mutually exclusive to being opposition spokesman on finance.
Well,
so as a matter of fact,
every spokesperson in the People's National Party is not restricted to speak on the matters under their...
So you are saying...
Mr. Jackson also declined to say if he would accept the position as opposition spokesperson on finance if asked by Dr. Phillips.
I don't cross bridges before I reach them.
Yeah, it sounds like he has had the discussion.
I have discussions about many things.
So that's the breaking news, Khalil, and on point.
That I have discussions about many things.
Fitz has been appointed opposition spokesman on finance.
Well, you don't tell me that you were the new leader of the opposition.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
CEO of West Indies Petroleum Charles Chambers says the Jamaican bunkering company is making strides in a bid to becoming a regional fuel player. The company also wants to become the major supplier of low-cost bunker fuel to shipping companies in Jamaica and the Caribbean. He was also a guest on BATV's On Point. Nordia Francis Williams reports.
CEO of West Indies Petroleum, Charles Chambers, says the Jamaica Broilers ethanol plant, which the company acquired, has been renamed to the West Indies Petroleum South Terminal.
And we've spent more or less the last 7 or 8 months converting that facility to allow us to import various kinds of fuel and distribute it largely to the shipping sector as well as regionally. As we've acquired and built out this plant, we have unfolded a number of opportunities for the distribution of fuel regionally, both in CARICOM as well as in Central America.
In the meantime, the CEO says West Indies Petroleum sees itself as an important player in the government's logistic hub initiative, as there are many opportunities to be had from their expanded operations.
I guess realistically, there's really just, there's Trinidad and there's Venezuela that produce drill oil out of the ground. Besides that,
Mexico.
And maybe Mexico. You're right. But all of those are very far away from where the ships might pass, and it's Jamaica's central location with respect to 4 shipping lanes. So if you were to pull out a map and look at the lanes where ships go, because ships tend to sort of follow a circle, if you will, they're going from one point to another and they're coming back to the point of origin.
He says the island is on the right track to becoming the next global logistics hub.
I think we are one of the first major people kind of putting money into the ground. There are some others, but specifically as it relates to the logistics hub, we see an opportunity today. So based on the vessels, based on the traffic that comes through here, we see an opportunity to supply fuel today to vessels that are coming here or maybe passing by here. The reality is that based on where Jamaica is, there are tremendous opportunities for other companies and industries to move here and take advantage of our location. It's undeniable.
For BATV News, I'm Nordia Francis Williams.
Still to come, the government banks on international financial services to increase revenue and provide jobs. We'll explain after the break. Welcome back. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Darrell Vaz, says Jamaica stands to benefit significantly from the establishment of an international financial services center. He points out that the government stands to gain increased revenue from fees generated from incorporations, registration, licenses, and work permits, while Jamaican professionals stand to benefit from increased business opportunities. He further notes that as international companies may seek to relocate to Jamaica, this will generate employment opportunities, with workers gaining valuable international experience while earning lucrative salaries. Minister Vaz says the government expects to bring the requisite bills to Parliament shortly. He notes that the legislative and regulative infrastructure being put in place will establish Jamaica as a sophisticated international financial services jurisdiction. Minister Vaz was addressing the Jamaica International Financial Services Authority's seminar in Kingston yesterday. Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett says his ministry is taking the hassle out of building and constructing new tourist attractions and accommodations in Jamaica. He says it's all a part of the ministry's Shovel Ready initiative. Angela Laidley reports.
Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett says investors don't have to worry about tedious processes when investing in the tourism industry. He says the ministry has specialized consultants tasked with making the process easier.
The ministry currently has several projects under its Shovel Ready initiative, Mr. Speaker, ably led by tourism extraordinaire John Lynch, who is also chairman of the Tourist Board. The Shovel Ready initiative seeks to pre-package a number of investment offerings And this initiative also seeks to directly assist investors by obtaining tacit development approvals, conducting carrying capacity studies, assessing appropriate land utilization, and installing preliminary infrastructure.
He says the government is focused on creating an environment where the ease of doing business is paramount.
These are important, Mr. Speaker, to enable what we call a turnkey operation, so that the investor can come, identify a facility, have the money, know that there is a package of development arrangement, and can start construction immediately thereafter.
Minister Bartlett says reducing bureaucracy is especially important now with the decisions the government has made regarding cruise shipping.
I'm also assured by steps that have been taken by Prime Minister Holness to reduce bureaucracy so that we can meet internationally accepted standards of efficiency and speed. Mr. Speaker, I recognize that we have to move a little faster in this regard, because cruise tourism is indeed, Mr. Speaker, the next big event that Jamaica has to embrace in this wider picture of building the prosperity agenda and providing more jobs for our people.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Laidley.
Just days after BATV News highlighted the pleas of the business process outsourcing sector that there isn't enough factory space to effectively expand the industry, the government is responding. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Dr. Horace Chang, says the Port Authority of Jamaica is collaborating with the Factories Corporation of Jamaica to build out spaces for business development across the island. Here's Leroy Hall with more.
Dr. Horace Chang says the two entities are working on 4 specific projects which will be particularly beneficial to the business process outsourcing sector.
The Port Authority and the Factories Corporation of Jamaica remain the driving force behind the government's business process outsourcing operations. The FCJ is expanding its purpose-built space for business process by a joint venture basis, outsourcing, and will be embarking on the 4 primary projects: Nago Head, Garmex Free Zone, Caymanas, and the Old Goodyear Complex in St. Thomas.
He says the government has plans to formalize the interactions between the Port Authority of Jamaica and the Factories Corporation of Jamaica by creating a full real estate company.
The long-term strategic plan is to ensure that the real estate assets of the Factories Corporation and the Port Authority are brought into a full real estate company for development of purpose-built space for industry. Assets can then be monetized, and the wider public can participate in their development, the profit of the company, the growth of the industry, because we have no intention of government being the dominant operator of this kind of activity. What we are doing is leading the way and engaging the private sector to come in and be the dominant player at some point.
Meanwhile, Dr. Chang says the government is also engaging the Heart Trust NTA to provide skilled professionals for the jobs which will be created.
The Port Authority actively collaborating with the private sector to ensure that there are adequate purpose-built facilities for the expansion in the business process outsourcing sector. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we are working to ensure that we have adequate human resources to fill the jobs that are created. The Honourable Prime Minister has articulated that object of employing up to 200,000 persons in the sector. We are working closely with the Heart Trust NTA and the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information to establish the programs to ensure that this is achievable, including the provision of technical capacities in the engineering and other technical areas needed for the sector to accommodate the growth in the economy.
Come June 1, the government is set to implement the revised pension scheme for public sector workers. On Wednesday, the House of Representatives passed legislation paving the way for public sector pension reform. Under the new regime, civil servants, the police, teachers, and parochial officers will begin making contributory payments towards their pensions. While closing the debate on the bills, Minister of Finance and the Public Service Audley Shaw said the scheme will begin on a phased basis, with the police, teachers, and parochial officers initially contributing 2.5% of their salaries instead of the full 5% stipulated under the new legislation. He said civil servants will continue to contribute 4% of their salaries, which was previously paid into the Widows and Orphans Fund. The finance minister added that regulations to govern the provisions of the Pensions Public Service Bill are already drafted. The Pension Public Service Act establishes a defined benefit contributory scheme where all pensionable officers will contribute 5% of salary, while at the same time establishing a segregated fund. There are also constitutional amendments which provide for the payment of pensions, gratuities, and allowances out of the pension fund. Currently, the Constitution only allows for pensions, gratuities, and other allowances granted in respect of the public service to be charged on and paid out of the consolidated fund. Regional and international stories are after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. An increase in natural gas rates is on the horizon for Barbadian consumers. Minister of Industry and Commerce Donville Innes says both the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Energy have been discussing new rates. The government is arguing that natural gas rates were long overdue for an increase and the National Petroleum Corporation would be in a better position to roll out the service to more communities. Natural gas is currently available in only parts of 8 of the island's 11 parishes to just over 16,000 householders, as well as several commercial entities, with some residents paying as little as $12 a month. The monthly rate schedule consists of a consumption charge of $1.48 per cubic meter, a fixed charge of $3 per month for each domestic meter, and 17.5% value-added tax on the bill. A 10% discount is given if the bill is settled within 15 days of the billing date. However, the government is arguing that there is now a need to bring the rate in line more with reality. In a swift response, Director General of the Barbados Consumer Research Association, Malcolm Gibbs Tate, told the Barbados Today online newspaper that he was opposed to an increase unless the government was willing to also give public servants a pay raise. He said a price hike made no sense if wages remained stagnant. Argentinians angry at austerity measures are calling for wage increases to be in line with inflation. Teachers, bus drivers, factory workers, and customs agents took part in a 24-hour anti-government strike. Al Jazeera's Teresa Bo reports from Buenos Aires.
Roadblocks all over Buenos Aires. This is what the first national strike against the government of Mauricio Macri looked like on Thursday. Strike leader Oscar Cooperman says the government is ignoring the situation among Argentina's poorest.
Our soup kitchens are getting more crowded with people asking for food and work. The situation at the slums is even more difficult as there is no work in sight. We are here because it is our obligation to demand this government change its economic plan.
The strike was called by Argentina's most powerful union, the General Confederation of Labor, which is challenging Mauricio Macri's economic policies. Since taking office, Macri devaluated the currency and ended subsidies for some basic services. This led to lower salaries in real terms and lost jobs.
This strike is happening in the middle of tough salary negotiations. Macri's economic measures have generated around a 40% inflation in 2016. People here say that salaries need to be adjusted because inflation is hurting the poor and the working class.
The 24-hour strike started at midnight, bringing to a halt public transport, airports, customs, schools, factories, and some government offices in South America's second largest economy. But not everyone supported the measure. Martín Schulzer, like many others, decided to open his shop.
It is the only way to contribute to be here. We have always worked during a strike. I own this business, and if we are not here, it's very difficult to get by.
The government says the strike is part of a campaign to hurt the current administration, 6 months before midterm elections. It is also happening as Argentina hosted the World Economic Forum on Latin America for the first time, where the Argentinian president said his government was doing what's necessary to kickstart the country's economy after years of stagnation.
y atacando un tema central.
We are attacking an issue that is of deep concern, that hurts those who have less and increases poverty, and that's inflation. It's at the centre of our agenda. We have been successful in reducing it, and we have to continue until we get it down to one digit.
In the last few months, government figures show the economy has slowly started to recover. On the streets, people claim they're hoping to see the benefits soon. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, Buenos Aires.
Over the past 25 years, there has been no significant reduction in the number of smokers in Indonesia. Nearly 75% of men still light up. In fact, the government is planning to produce more tobacco. Here's more.
In their younger years, Addison and his wife Maria were both heavy smokers. Now Maria is bedridden after suffering 3 strokes. Her 78-year-old husband was diagnosed with cancer of the larynx 20 years ago, and his vocal cords were removed. His image is used on cigarette packages in a government campaign against smoking.
I was a very heavy smoker. I used to smoke 3 packets a day for more than 50 years. You could say I was a chain smoker. I would light one cigarette after the other.
Addison lost his job after the operation because it was difficult for him to communicate. Instead, he joined a campaign against smoking.
I show young people the hole in my throat and ask them, do you want to end up like me? I'm handicapped. I cannot function anymore. I've lost my voice.
Despite protests by victims like this couple, the government is discussing a new tobacco bill which is meant to expand tobacco production. While the government insists that tobacco farmers have to be considered, anti-tobacco activists say the bill contradicts any anti-smoking measures that had been adopted. The tobacco industry is one of the largest industries in Indonesia, paying revenues as large as 38% of the country's GDP. But health officials say health costs of smoking-related diseases are much higher.
I understand that the government needs the money from tobacco producers to develop our country, but they forget the amount of money that is spent to treat victims of smoking in this country.
As well as taking care of his wife, Addison teaches other larynx cancer patients to speak again. Although warnings against smoking come too late for him and for Maria, he hopes he can help save other lives. Step Vassen, Al Jazeera, Jakarta.
Oil prices held near 1-month highs today after the United States attacked a Syrian airbase last night. Sierra Lee tells us more.
A spike for oil, a wavering dollar and markets opening lower. News of the US launching cruise missiles against Syria's military prompted strong demand for safe investments across global markets. The biggest gains came in gold and the Japanese yen. Like to park their cash in uncertain times. Another is German government bonds, seen as one of the safest assets in the world. Oil prices reached a 1-month high in morning trade after knee-jerk concerns over supply if tensions in the Middle East escalate.
There is indeed a full-scale war at some point involving loads of other countries additional to what we've seen so far. That obviously would be a serious disruption, but I think we are reading too much into what happened. Well, at least I hope that the markets initially read too much on what happened yesterday and that some normality can resume.
But it's not just uncertainty in the Middle East making investors uneasy.
The DAX and financial investors worldwide are disappointed by Donald Trump. He promised a lot during the election campaign, and above all, people are waiting for infrastructure measures and tax cuts. Neither of those things seem to be on the agenda at the moment. It's not very reassuring for investors.
Focus is now shifting to the conclusion of Trump's meeting with Chinese Premier Xi Jinping. The two leaders expected to get into more detailed discussions about trade and foreign policy issues.
Stay with us. Talking Stocks is after the break. Welcome back. Time now for Talking Stocks. 44 stocks traded today, of which 19 advanced, 19 declined, and 6 traded firm. The main JSE index advanced by 2,650 points to close at 226,260 points. The junior index also advanced, going up by 17 points to close at 3,038 points. Over 15 million units traded today, valued at more than $254 million on the Jamaican dollar market, while on the US dollar market, over 23,000 units traded, valued at some $6,000 US dollars. Alaska Manufacturing, with over 2 million units changing hands, accounted for 17% of market volume. Honeybun was second with over 2 million units trading, and NCB Financial Group, with some 2 million units, accounted for 15% of the market volume. Margaritaville was the top advancer, going up 3 cents to close at 26 cents, followed by ISP Finance Services up $1.50 to close at $15.50, and Scotia Investments going up at $3.11 to close at $39.20. The main decliners were Portland JSX, losing 90 cents to close at $10, followed by Siboney Group down by a cent to close at 19 cents, and Cable and Wireless down 5 cents to close at $1.28. In foreign exchange trading, the US ended the day selling for $129.91, while the Canadian sold for $96.05, and the British pound went for $159.85. And that's all the news we have for you this evening. But before we go, a recap of our top story. Opposition MP Fitz Jackson says he's bringing a class action lawsuit against banks who charged customers dormant account fees, as this breached the Banking Services Act. Thanks for watching. For more content, please visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Kenil Gale. Pleasant viewing.